I always liked the Dorothea Lange quote because I thought it was kind of interesting, in the work she did. But that was also born out of a still photography class where photography, I think I broke his heart, the professor, because he asked us in the first day why we were taking photography. And some people like because of the art and all this. And I wrote because I want to get a job at a newspaper, and I figure I'd be more marketable if I could take the pictures too.
Didn't like it. Um, so how did you get into TV?
Kind of backwards. I really wanted to be in newspapers. So, all through high school and college, I was like student editor, the editor of the newspapers, and so I went to Penn State, and I was trying to get an internship with the Patriot, but they didn't have any more. They were filled up, and so my professor said, "Why don't you go to Channel 15? And it's a small station. You'll get to do a lot." And so Timmy and I went there and did our internships there, and then I got a job as a reporter for the summer, and I thought this is a lot of fun. I really enjoy this.
I haven't found that tape yet. Someone did tell me you're a reporter. I didn't find it.
Yeah, for 3 months, he guaranteed me a job from, like, school ended in May. We graduated, and he said, "I'll keep you on until Labor Day." Well, in a very short time, he had to lay off. There were only 7 people in the department, and he had to lay off like 2 or 3 of them. And he kept me on because he said, "I gave you my word. I'd keep you till Labor Day."
Wow.
So I was loving it. I was about 21 years old, and I was a TV reporter in a top 50 market. I had the Lebanon Reading beat, and I totaled the news car the first week I was on the job. And I had to call because I was down in Reading. I didn't know where I was. And I had to call the news director and say, "I just rear-ended somebody with the news car. How bad is it?" "Well, it's not drivable."
Oh no.
People driving by, "Hey, mister, you going to put that on the news?" And he said, "Well, where are you?" The news director. I said, "I don't know." And I really didn't know because I was on some, like, 4-lane highway somewhere. Just trying to get back because he was really, it was Dave Hopkins. Did you know Dave?
The name rings a bell.
Yeah, he went to JAC, or TAJ then.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. He was a real excitable character. He yelled a lot.
Yeah.
But he was real calm with me, and they said we can replace cars, not people. So I thought that was because I thought I am so fired. I am so fired.
I'm sorry. How did you get to be chief first?
It was 1987, and well, I think it was one of those cases where I was like everybody else. I was working weekends, and I was getting tired of it. So it was time to really start thinking about what to do. And I had a reporter partner that I worked with all the time, and the chief left. I went down to Channel 8, and the news director asked her, said, "What do you think Jerry wants to do?" She said, "I think he'd be a good chief. You're going to have to do something or you're going to lose him." And so, boom.
And then news director happened.
News director really happened de facto because we laid off like 17 people, and the news director at the time, Keith, bailed out, and got a job in Florida. And so then I was acting news director. We didn't have an assistant news director position at the time. So, and I was like news operations manager. So.
But you still got to shoot.
Yeah, but not without difficulty because the GM at the time didn't want me to have no parts of that.
What were some of your favorite pieces?
My favorite piece was the football story, the Shenandoah Valley story.
I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah, because it was shot with one camera. And if you look at it, it looks like a total team shoot. And it's only because it was one of those things where everything fell into place. I had a lav mic on the coach, went in the locker room. It was the first time. Shenandoah's a little coal town that hadn't been to the playoffs in like 50 years or something like that. So the whole town was, and so I had the coach. I went to the town during the day. I went to their pep rally in the gym. Basically spent the day with the team, We interviewed townspeople, and then went to the game. And I got this guy, I couldn't use half of what he could. He cursed. Everything was, "Get the mother," this coach is cursing. And he prayed, which he got fired for now, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "Let's all say a prayer." And I'm thinking, my gosh, today
Yeah.
they'd cuff you and throw you in a police car. And so they're playing at Schuylkill Haven. I guess they played Schuylkill Haven. And I took some time. I ran up in the booth because there was a guy announcing. I thought I need some narrative. And just when I got up there, somebody ran a touchdown back. And another thing, a kid got hurt, and I had the lav mic up in the booth, Jones hurt on the play, and I did some fan stuff, and they're like, we're going to get him tonight, they're screaming at the camera and everything, whatever they said. And it just all came together. Like I had all this net sound. It looked like there were 3 or 4 cameras there. Not because I was anything great, and then I followed them back because they got the fire trucks out, into town. And I ended on the town square where all the townspeople are out, like waving banners. And
they won.
They won it. And it was a come from behind win. So, it's like, can they do it? They're going to do it. Jones runs it back, and then you go into town and everybody's honking their horns and the people are all out waving and fire trucks come through. And I have this long shot. You can see like it's in a little valley. So you see in the distance all the red flashing lights on the fire truck. So that was my favorite just because of the way it came together, and it was a lot of fun, and I think it really moves. Racer Chasers was another one that I really enjoyed because if you ever get a drunk and get a lav mic on them, you're in business,
Plus that one's visual because you got the gnats.
Right.
Trucks. Is that a key for good photography? For telling good stories?
What's that?
What is a key? Like needing more
anticipation. First of all, I always said that, telling a good story isn't hard. Finding one is. You got to really work to find them. You got to really work the little local newspapers. And Irish bowling came out of the Philadelphia Inquirer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I picked it up one day and I thought, I'm going to look at this. And I saw an article on it and I said to Carol, we need to go down and do this. It's not that far away, And you got to be willing to travel a little bit once in a while.
Yeah.
So we went to West Virginia that day for that story. Old Baldy came out of the Patriot. And it was like 2 years old. I had seen it, and I remember reading the article thinking, this is great. Because another thing about a good story is it's got to have conflict. And Carol and I went down to Gettysburg to do a story. They were stealing somebody was stealing like swords off the statues. And we drove by the statue of Meade and his horse. And I said, you know what, there's a story on that horse that we should do. And she called the museum, and we were in.
Everyone talks about Old Baldy.
Yeah, Old Baldy, there's a couple changes I would make now that I'm thinking about it. There's one point where I have like a horse's, I went up to sound effects and got it like,
right.
And his face going side to side. I would have shot it like this and had his head go like,
instead
of side to side. Yeah.
How did you do the panoramic thing?
I moved the camera like 100 times.
Okay, because everyone asks how you did that.
Yeah, they think there was like a digitally, they think that's a news flow thing, but no, I physically moved the camera I paced out from the statue, say 20 paces, whatever, and then just kept moving the camera all the way around so it was the same. I did it like wide, and I did it medium, then I did it tight, so I'd have a different. Mm-hmm.
You're known for your sunrises and sunsets.
Yeah.
Does that add?
I think it does, just because it's so visual and it's colorful. It's color TV, it's not radio.
Is it hard to get the right? Like, how do you know the angle it goes?
Well, you don't. You go down there, and I was going down after work essentially, meaning after I was done with my package of the day. So say I'd get done editing at 5 o'clock, then I'd hightail it down to Gettysburg. So the first night I got there, I didn't make it really. I mean, the sun, because when you shoot a sunset or sunrise, it goes by faster than you can ever imagine. You think, oh, it looks beautiful. Next thing you look up and it's down behind the mountain or whatever. So I got to get here 20 minutes earlier. And that's what I did. So that's probably the effort of 3 or 4 trips to Gettysburg till I finally got. And I know, here's this statue, and that's where it's going down. And then I would adjust, and re-white balance constantly because the color temperature changes so fast when there's a sunset.
Because you make it look easy, but did you have to shoot it like with the Gettysburg ones? Did you have to go down different times to go past the different statues?
No, you know what happened? I went down, and I like to shoot sunrise or sunset because the lighting's so dynamic. It's like off-camera lighting, and that all the stuff in the beginning segment where the guy's like shooting the gun and the gun's going like that. I went down there because I wanted to get a couple more sunrise shots. So I got up from here at like 3 in the morning and drove down there and got there at like 5:30 or whatever it was. So I was in place on time, but it started raining. So if you notice, they don't have the nice dynamic. They're kind of flat, and that's why. And that's when it came to me that I thought, you know what, I can make these horses animated. Because I've done enough stories at Gettysburg where I've shot beautiful statues and sunsets, I thought, what if I move the camera around? and just do, like take it like this, so the gun goes like this, and that's when it's fun, because I always say, you edit your story in the field, because you really do. Once you get back, now Gettysburg's close enough, if it's a story that you really want to invest in, you can drive 40 minutes to get it done. But most cases you don't have that, especially in spot news.
Okay.
Ghost of Steam is another one that, I was going there for the sunrise, and that's in Huntington County, so that was a ride. And I got there and I pulled off and I look at the windshield, it's raining. But then I get this guy to say, sometimes rain enhances a steam train ride because the steam is more accentuated when it's foggy, and all that. And I get there right away and I got a character. I mean, I don't even get into the roundhouse where they keep the engine. William Weibel. Are there ghosts here? I don't know. I think there are. I talked to him, and he was great. And he was getting the engine all ready, stoking it up.
And you did that with SVHS.
That was
So
SV.
the guys who gripe now that it's hard to get.
Oh my God. Heck, I'd have done it with 3/4. A format really should never be an excuse. You could take your camcorder from home and shoot a good pack. And I'm not exaggerating that.
It's about the story.
It's about the story. That's exactly it. You want to have good quality, of course, but it's not going to matter if you shoot it, what you shoot it on. You mean to tell me if there was a tornado and you saw it and you had your camcorder, you'd say, no, I'm going to go to the station first, because I have time till this funnel cloud goes away. You wouldn't do that, right?
No.
You'd get the video and figure it out, and you'd go get up to people and get some sound bites.
Talk about the characters. What characters have you met along the way that stick out in your mind? Because that makes
Well, the best character was the mining guy that I went down in the mine with, because he was funny. He had it all. He was funny, and he was sincere, like he built that monument to the dead coal miners, and, But the best thing about a story is when it has a twist. You got to really look for that, like what's going to make it. Just like old Baldy could have just been, oh, here's a horse's head, but there was a legal battle over the horse's head, which struck me as kind of funny. This thing has been dead for outlived the over a horse's head, But if you build it up to the viewer and give them a twist, then it helps suck them in and keep them interested. And that's not easy. That's what I mean. Finding a good story is hard, because you can do. When I first started doing like photo essays, they were all just basically like. One was a guy that spun pottery, beautiful pottery. I mean, a professional potter, and that was one of the first times. And back then on 3/4, we couldn't do like slow-mo or anything. You had to go back to master control, have it put on 1 inch, and if you did an A/B roll, you had to make an actual A tape, like your soundtrack, dub it over, and then match all the shots on the B tape exactly with like a 2-second slop time, then sync them up in 2 different decks and get a director to actually in the booth do dissolves for you if you wanted to do them. And it was the first time I shot like one of his plates, and I just kept putting it through different phases. So it started like as clay, and then it dissolved to, it was like partially done, then it was like halfway done, then 3/4 done, then all the way done. So, and then one time I took a camera and put it in an aquarium and went out on a fish stalking story, and everybody thought it was like I landed a guy on the moon, It's really not that big a deal. But you'd see their hands go in the water and the fish would swim away from the camera. That was a real Jacques Cousteau up on Stony Creek.
The first underwater camera.
Most photojournalists don't get close enough. That's a problem, the zoom with your feet thing. But it's not just about zooming with your feet or getting in somebody's face. It's because of the animation that happens. And there's a line. I mean, you have to, as a photojournalist, make a judgment. If you're freaking them out and making them uncomfortable, you're not gaining anything. But with these shotgun mics that we have now, you can be 4 feet away and get crystal clear sound, so there's really not an excuse. Especially at spot news and
I noticed in like a lot of our ice habits, your packages you try and get either the people to say it, but the title of your piece is usually it's in like people say old ball. People said the life is beautiful. Do you is that like I don't know if you had a title for something, would you try and have the person say it or?
Oh no, never, no. We didn't tell him to say life is beautiful. It just made sense because he kept saying that over and over again. And I'll tell you, for competitions, the title has a lot to do with it. You've judged. And when you see a title that's catchy or grab, and then you see the piece, and you get, oh, I see why they called it that. It really helps put it together.
So it's almost like you got to listen to what they're saying.
You listen to what they're saying. You know, Razor Chaser struck me out of the blue because it rhymed, and I thought that was kind of funny. Old Baldy was just Old Baldy. Irish Bowling was just Irish Bowling, you know.
Now, the year you won, how many years? You won once for photographer?
Twice.
Twice. What were the pieces that you remember you entered?
The first time I entered, it was one of those. What happened is the Emmy people came to WITF and did a little dog and pony show to drum up entries, and they showed, well, it was Keith Blaisdell's tape and John Campbell's tape. You know, and I watched it, and honestly I thought, well, I know these guys, you know, and I think I can run with them. That was just, I didn't walk away saying, oh, I can beat, it was just, I can at least run in this league, you know, so that was the first time I entered. And I remember the first story on the, I have them here if you want to see them.
Yeah.
Now they were shot on 3/4, but the one I know why it won, it's funny, it's not funny if you're the deceased, but a guy found a body down by Milltown along the river. So Ann Taylor and I found him, went and found this guy. He was probably like 20 years old maybe. And he said, of course, can you take us where you found the body? Sure. And 27 pulls in his driveway. He said, tell you what, we'll give you a ride there. He piles in the news truck. We take off. They follow us. It's like, get out of here. And so we had to go under like a railroad underpass, and an Amtrak train went by. So, you know, I used that for some gnats to show that, you know, you got to really go. And I had a lav mic on this guy, and he walks over there. He said, all these years I walk along the river looking for things. I do that with Joe, too, you know. Like after the flood now, you'll find that bench we got out there came from the Lehigh River.
Oh, I didn't know
We
that.
found it last Easter and carried it home. It's 100 years old. It's an antique. It would have floated down the river in a flood, you know. So anyway, he goes, all these years looking for stuff. Always thought maybe one of these days I'd find me a body. Well, found me one. He was laying right over there, sitting up, just his shirt and his bones were sticking out, you know. And luckily the guy wasn't local, because I always say, you know, you should think of how you would want to be treated if you were a victim, you know, and when in doubt, leave it out, you know. You don't have to be Mel Gibson and put blood all over the place. And, you know, and I learned my lesson. It really hit me once. There was a fraternity fire up at Bloomsburg University. It was a fraternity house. And the video was from one of the Scranton stations. And it was carrying the deceased kid like in a body bag down the fire escape, you know, like the paramedics or the firemen or whatever. And finally the mother called. The kid was from Mechanicsburg. That's why we were doing the story all the time. And they said, you know, I know you guys do the news, but could you please stop using that? Because every time we see it, it just puts a dagger in our heart. You know, they know that's their loved one all burned up coming down in that body bag. And from that point on, I always thought, you know, do we really need to see a body bag? I mean, it used to be when I started, you know, we'd stay there, they'd pay overtime, 5 hours just to wait for a body bag to come out of a car crash and then finally it started over the years to get like, you know, the mangled car is enough, the burned out house and the police tape is enough, you know, then to put the families through that, or to pay the overtime.
Has storytelling changed since you started?
You know what happened to me, Nellie? It was like that Emmy epiphany that I had when I saw those tapes, and I thought, that's really good stuff, and, you know, we can run with that. I didn't know anything about NPPA. I didn't know it existed until almost 1990. It was 94 before I joined and started getting into competition, you know, and so I watched, they used to put it up on, like, satellite. Actually, WITF used to air it as a show. There'd be, like, a photographer out in Denver that used to put them together and narrate it. And this story from Seattle, you know, and it would be a spot news story. And I'd go home and I'd watch that, and wow, that's really good, you know, and try to pick some things up. And I thought, wow, somebody else actually believes like me that you should use a tripod and try to put some Nat sound in pieces. Because it wasn't, you know, photography was pretty crude when I started. I'll tell you what, the chief actually used to shoot out of the van. Like, he'd roll the window down and and like roll out of it's, well, he come back and say, well, it was raining. Oh my God.
It's true, it was raining.
No, I was really hated when I first became chief.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I said we're going to use tripods and we're going to, you know, and I was a son of a bitch about it too.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm
Remember-
sure that's why a lot of people came.
Mhm.
You know, that whole mentality. It's storytelling. It's not just running gun and.
Yeah, but the key is, as I learned over the years, you know, if you don't have somebody that's going to write it, and do it. And that's where reporters really have to be involved. That's why when these seminars happen, it's important. Like when we all went to Philly, I think Carol really was, her plane was really taking off, and it's because she made the effort to go to these seminars. Not that you're going to go there and all of a sudden be, a 30 Emmy award-winning person, but they do put a shot in your belt. You went down to Oklahoma City and you see some really good stuff, unlike the stuff everybody enters.
the crap. What do you think people don't know about what we do?
You mean the public, or?
Yeah.
The public still perceives us as cameramen and camerawomen that go with a reporter and they say, shoot that fire truck, shoot that house, shoot that person crying on the curb, And really, if that's the mentality that we have, we're dead. Photographers, I was enjoying writing more. I mean, that was the next thing I wanted to start really doing, was producing pieces. And any photographer can do that. If you find a piece. Sometimes it's tough to get somebody to voice it, though. Because they don't want to put their voice to something they didn't write. And I understand that. That would be like somebody shooting something and, But yeah, that's how I encourage every photojournalist to write a piece or two, and look for those twists in it. And think of the stories that you see on the NPPA tapes and what really strikes you. One of my favorites is still that license plate guy. You know what I mean? There's something wrong with him, but he collects those license plates. That's a brilliant story, because at first you think, oh, isn't that nice? They send this guy license plates, and then he goes in and he's like this encyclopedic mind. He's almost autistic. He's going like, here's one from Pennsylvania, here's one from Illinois. This one's Cherry, 1922 Hawaii or whatever.
Do you think they make them like us anymore? Are you born are you born with it?
I think so, because I couldn't imagine from the 10th grade on. I mean, I was going to go into newspapers, but it doesn't matter. I used to write stories, for the newspaper or take pictures for the newspaper. I think once you start doing it, and I mean this, you stay with it long enough, you get enough of a salary. It's a great job to go to. That's why it really frustrated me to hear people just pissing and moaning all the time. It's like, what else do you want to do for a living? You get to take a camera out and tell stories. It's kind of neat shooting a sunrise every once in a while and appreciating it. And then I always liked the time in the AV suite. At 11 at night. I really enjoyed that. Because that's where close the door, nobody bothers you. You put the lamp on in the back without fluorescent lights. I hate fluorescent lighting. And you have the big speakers there, not some little speaker on a TV set. And then you play with it, and then debate, should I put music in or not? The judges are going to hate it, but screw them. This is my style.
Let's talk about the music. How much does it add to a piece?
It can either make a piece, it can move you to tears, or it could just totally wreck it. And this is another, because we've had umpteen consultants over the years, and every once in a while they make sense. And one told me, you run the risk when you use music, maybe this came from an NPPA article or something, that everybody has a memory of a song. So, say you use Love Shack for some reason, or think of a...
Love Shack, yeah.
Or pick any song. What do you think of, when I think of the Cars, when I hear the group The Cars, like Best Friend's Girlfriend, I think of high school track, because we used to have, that was around the time I was running track, and we'd have a big boom box in the field house playing The Cars or My Sharona or something like that. So it takes, in my mind, that's where that song takes me, whereas you as the editor and the artist are using My Sharona because you're doing a story on a girl named Sharon or something. And while it might make sense, every viewer is going to take it to a different
You're
place.
known for your music, but it's not music with words. The
No,
instrument.
it's the canned music. Technically, at our station, it's illegal, and it's not because I got reamed out for using all the Beatles music, and it's true. If somebody had heard that from ASCAP, we probably would have gotten a phone call. And one time I did a documentary, a half-hour show on. Did you see that cops show I did, where I rode with the Harrisburg PD?
No.
That turned out pretty good.
Oh, I didn't know.
That was a funny show, and I did outtakes at the end. The cops I asked them to tell their funniest stories, and they tell stories like, I had a drunk driver once, and he said, but I only had 2 beers, and they were light beers. And then Officer Umapeg, do you know him?
To see him, I'd probably recognize him.
He's either Hawaiian or something, and
I know you mean that.
funny guy. And he was on the bike patrol, but he was telling me one time guy ran out in front of him. I guess they ran him over by mistake. I mean,
yeah.
they were chasing him, And he said, but he lived.
Live.
Mike Umapeg is his name, yeah.
The instrumentals you use, though, it does add, like, your fishing, that fishing piece, remember?
Oh, you see, you love that.
I do.
Well, see, that was one where I always thought, I always loved the fishing part. And, that's where the sun gets easy, because you can make it go from left to right. And I always tried to shoot, a lot of times I'd think in the field, how do I want to do things? So I'd shoot something left, something right, knowing that the dissolve could go, like this, back and forth. Like the stand-up we did. I don't know how that worked
Carol.
out yet, but with Carol, yeah.
Um,
Use all parts of the frame and those intersecting points on the tic-tac-toe board.
what are you known for,
Oh gosh, I don't know.
other than your epic 8-minute?
Yeah, long stories, yeah. Guilty. The joke is, what is 2 minutes to Jerry Trentley? A Vosot.
What story do you still want to do?
There are a couple where I wanted to do some more that were funnier. I always wanted to get into, there's a guy in the State House named Bill DeWeese.
Oh, yeah, I knew him.
And, he's very flamboyant. Whenever you see him, he uses, like, words that are, like, 40 syllables long. But he gets so animated, and he uses them. And I bet, you could get MOS from, like, the state reps. What did he say? I have no idea what he's talking about. And he uses them correctly. I mean, he's not a dumb guy. But, I thought when they do, like, the spelling bee for kids, you could say it in the State House and have these big words, start with a wide shot of the Capitol. That's something I always thought that photojournalists neglected too, is the wide shot. It's easy to take 40 quick shots and boom, 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 they're all tight, but unless you widen out, we have to show people things. And like a lot of times, even on, it was our news or it doesn't matter. I mean, I could watch 27 or S or 8, and there'll be a fire somewhere, let's say. And unless there's a wide shot of the block, it's a window, like a charred window. That doesn't, I want to know if it's Vaughn Street, is it between 2nd and 3rd? I mean, even if you give me the address, I can't, from a window or a house address, pick it out. So.
Dorothy Lang has her saying. What's your saying? Your quote. Or do you have one?
I don't know that I have one, other than the compendium of things that I was telling you about. Get close. Don't be afraid to get close. And in anticipation, if it's a one-word phrase, that's what it would be. You have to. That's like that football game that I thought turned out pretty decent. I knew I had to get my butt down on the field. You have to think through what you're going to do. And I don't think, people, Chris, I don't mean it to sound that the story's edited before I get there. I think you have to allow for that quirk, because you don't know what character you're going to bump into. And if you have a predetermined, oh, this is how it's going to be, then you're not open-minded to what's going to go on. A lot of times the person that you call to set up your photo essay with isn't the person that ends up being the character. But if you're locked into that and saying, no, this is the person. So it's always good to talk to people and listen. That's another thing. Photojournalists tend not to listen. They mic somebody up and, you got to look for the question that's going to elicit something more than a yes or no answer.
How do you try to end your pieces? Like, there's always supposed to be a beginning, middle, and...
You should have an end shot. You should have an opening shot and a closing shot. If you don't have it, don't leave. Don't leave the scene,
So that's one of those things you have to know before you go, hey, like you said, you edit out there.
Yeah, you're edited before you get back. You get in the edit booth, you think, okay, I need a nice wide shot to end. Wide shots, people should get 4, 5, 6 of them, because they're also a safety valve. If you get in an editing bind, you can always go to the wide shot.
What am I leaving out that people should know what to do? Like the new guys.
You know all this stuff.
I know, but I know I forget. Like, you say it more eloquently than I do. That's why I'm stealing your time.
Well, a lot of them come from smaller markets where there's not much attention paid to storytelling. So they're not thinking that sound. I mean, those mics and those phone cords, should make it so academic. And I'm not just talking about the rumble of a fire truck. That's not that challenging. You really need to look for the fireman yelling, put hose 2 on, like animated, like really like he's passionate. Emotion is what drives the best stories. And if you can find the emotion, you're in business. I got to show you that guy finding the body.
Is it harder
funny.
to make someone laugh or cry?
Laugh by far, I think. Because we do so much tragedy. We go so many times to like the house of a soldier that's been killed overseas or something. And now there's so many of them. Remember when the war was going to start? If there were 4 or 5 that we found, and now sadly there's I'm a cow. Don't bother.
Yeah, there's too many.
Jackie, we have that my first Emmy tape that hit with the guy that's saying, "All these years thought I'd find me a body. Well, found me one." And is it Rooting for the Devils here? No, the tape with Ghosts of Steam and all that on didn't win. I thought, because my first tape that I entered, I thought it was okay, but I was really, when they said my name, I almost fell out of the chair. First time entering, I thought there's no way, and they said, and it's like it's Brad Now, John Campbell, and Feeser was there by some dumb fluke. Keith didn't make it.
Oh.
There was a something on the Schuylkill Expressway. Jackie was pregnant. I remember we got stuck at the toll booth, and I couldn't do anything to get her to a restroom.
Oh no!
Traffic was backed up 5 lanes. All the way through the booths. It was just a parking lot. But the second tape that I entered had maybe Racer Chasers and Ghosts of Steam, and I thought, well, if the first tape won, this is a shoo-in because this is much better stuff. I thought. Nothing. I got nominated, but.
What about the kid with the Liberty, Statue of Liberty? The kid, remember Statue of Liberty on the.
You know what? I didn't put that on the tape. I don't think because it was too long. That was my problem. So I went to put a tape together. There's what's the limit? 15 or 20 minutes, something like that. Well, I put 2 stories on and I was cooked. So I'd excerpt.
Okay. Because I remember that one.
No, I thought that turned out all right. He was this animated. As I thought. Well, see, the neon glass didn't have a hook to it, other than it's pretty, and that had music in it. And see, I think that picked that piece up. Mm-hmm. So you have to make that decision. So most of the music is canned music, and that's all we're allowed to use. I have no problem putting like slow piano music or something if somebody's talking about their battle with cancer or something like that. I think it really does drive it. And I watched a number of pieces, and I thought, yeah, it just puts you in a mood. And that's the key word. It's a mood when you choose music. You shouldn't stereotype. If maybe you do a story on somebody that lost their hands in an accident, and somehow they make wicker baskets with their teeth, or one of those things. And of course, you don't give that away right away. You wait until you see, and then you cut wider and you see how they're making it. But you won't necessarily go find banjo music because you assume that's something in the country, that they make baskets out in the country, because you force a stereotype on somebody, and you want to be true to what they are. And of course, the best sound is like you were going to go to that mandolin festival or whatever it was. If you can find it live there, then you're in business.